Hello and welcome to the Animation Kimmunication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Animation Communication with people we know anyway, because it's one of those weeks. So I'm KP as usual. I don't know.
And I'm Lauren.
And Lauren is not KP, and this is video editing, basics of video editing. So joining us for this episode is the boys, two of our Team KP editors, to talk about video editing. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves to people who don't know who you are? I guess Ola can go first.
Hello, my name is Ola. As KP said, I have been on this podcast before, so obviously you all know me. I am the head editor of Team KP, and what I do is I edit stuff. That's me. That's my whole personality.
And you're really good at art, right?
Oh yes, I'm great at art. I'm the greatest artist. It says so in my Twitter bio, so it must be true.
That is how it's chosen.
So Ola also does things like if there's any editors that need help or don't know how to do things, he helps them work through it and basically make sure things are not on fire because in case you haven't noticed, I have a lot of mental health limitations. So I'm like, Ola, I'm broken, run the team, I'm gonna go hide under my bed. And he's like, okay, same old, so that's kind of our relationship. Or I say that's what she said joke, and then Ola's like, God damn it, like, so, anyway.
And I'm like, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's another one of Ola's catchphrases. He's like, that
makes sense.
And where are you from, Ola? Because people might pick up your accent and not know where you're from.
What do you mean? I am American. I speak perfect American. No, I'm from Norway,
America.
And so is Sander. We're both Norwegians.
Hi.
We're taking
We're
over
both...
Team KP.
Yes, slowly and slowly the Vikings are taking over.
Okay, Sander, tell everyone who you are.
Yes, hi, my name is Sander and I am an editor for Team KP. I guess I've slowly become audio person. That's so that's my main thing, I guess. But I also sometimes I do normal KP videos. Sometimes, but it tends to usually be podcast editing and just general audio help.
Well, you had
I
an
guess.
internship the whole summer, so you couldn't do regular videos.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I
not
was
my
very
fault.
busy this summer. No, I know.
Sander
But,
and Ola, how long have you been on the team?
For a 1.5 year, or over 1.5 year, I think, at this point.
1.5 year.
No, Ola's been 1.6 and prologue chapter final length.
And
Because he likes the Kingdom Hearts.
Funny joke.
Funny joke. And I've been on the team for, I don't know, go look up when the Princess Bride video came up and add a couple of months.
For about a year and like 2 months, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
and why don't you talk about, because this is how Sander got on the team, because I think that's kind of sort of interesting a little bit.
I forced
Okay.
him.
So
That's
Ola
the
and Sander were
general
friends in
basis.
real life, and then Ola's like, so we hired through Indeed, but before that, I didn't know what I was doing, so we're not hiring through the YouTube channel anymore, because that's just, like, it's just bad PR, too, because, like, in general, the team rotates, because this is, this is nonprofit, this is volunteer, so a lot of times people get, like, full-time jobs. A lot of the cases, people are in college, and then they get a full-time job, and they're just like, well, guess I'll die. So, but anyway, now COVID, and it's so overcomplicated. Anyway, so I would used to hire people via the YouTube channel and be like, hey, we're hiring. But after like 5 of those, people are like, is she like Sweeney Todd and like killing all the editors and getting new editors? And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. So, but
KP does the murder.
yeah, that's what I need. Add that to my list of imaginary crimes. Kill puppies, murderer. It's fine.
Yeah. Violate some Geneva Conventions,
Commit war crimes.
Commit war crimes.
Oh no, you guys caught me. So Ola was like, so I usually ask people internally because a lot of people join the team to have access to other creative people. Well, one of the reasons. So I'm like, hey, does anyone know any editors before we put out an ad? And then Ola's like, I know this guy who's really good. And I'm like, sounds cool. So that's basically how that worked. So, but that really happens. Because usually people don't know other people. So that's why they join the team in the first place.
Usually, editors don't have friends.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
KP was just like, is he any good? And I was like, I personally think he's better than me. But that's actually what I said. I don't think I've actually told you that, Sandra, but that's what I said to KP when she asked.
It's confession time.
And then he's like, Ola's a pretty good editor anyway. So I'm like, oh, now I'm interested. So,
Hey.
yay. So that's our thing. Okay, we'll get back to the news. Anyway, so should we do the good news or the bad news first, Lauren?
I feel like maybe let's just get the bad news done and over with, and and then we can ease everything down up with good
Okay,
news.
go ahead. Ruin everyone's day.
So I guess okay, so I'm about to ruin everybody's day, but hopefully save it by the end. Anyway, so as of recording this, it's only been about 48 hours since Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer at age 43. And as we have all come to learn in that time is that he was silently fighting this cancer, and he was diagnosed in 2016. And even in the meantime, while battling this cancer, which only his like immediate family knew about, and maybe the companies he worked with for movies, is that he still went out and produced full-on action movies and took on all of these roles that like really became staples in his career. I mean, he did Civil War, he did Black Panther, he did Avengers Endgame, all of that stuff. He did, and it just had no idea. And he was even doing other movies on top of that, and nobody knew. But his health was in major decline within the past couple months, and just nobody knew if he was losing weight for a role, or if he was, nobody knew. But I guess it's because he didn't want anybody knowing about his battle. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I just wanted to say a thing.
So that kind of just came as a sucker punch to everybody.
I just want to say a thing, like, if you have a bad disease, whether it be cancer or so be it, don't feel like you're pressured to work through it and make all these movies because he made all these movies on top of dealing with, I assume, chemo and all that stuff. So everyone's individual battle with whatever they're working with is different. So I just wanted to get that out there too, because I don't want people who are going through that. I mean, I don't think that would happen, but just God forbid, I'm just saying it. So like, you don't just because he pushed himself and was able to do this stuff, and it's amazing, but everyone has a different way of getting through whatever they're getting through. So like, some people can't just go shoot out movies, or like they're physically not able to. So, but I am surprised he wasn't like a little bit more public about it. I assume he didn't want to scare people because like Black Panther as a movie was so influential to a lot of people. So I don't know, it just sucks.
Yeah.
Thanks 2020.
And plus I think again it's also he kind of wanted to keep it private because it's something where it's like he didn't want that to be part of his legacy. I guess it's just people knowing he was sick and treating him differently because of it.
Hopefully, at this point, you're not hearing that's not the thing. Like, you're not first hearing it from us, because it's been all over Twitter, because it's been a surprise, sad thing, and I hope you heard about it beforehand. But it sucks, and yeah.
He was such a strong actor.
Yeah.
like going through all
Yeah.
this. And I actually saw this picture where he actually visited a little girl in the hospital while she was dealing with cancer, while he was secretly dealing with cancer as well. Like he was a great person.
Yeah, and I was gonna mention that because I mean, first of all, it was not on Twitter. I think like every single social media platform. It's just like I scrolled Facebook like 5 posts of the same thing. So I think people do know about it. But yeah, I was gonna talk about the same image. I like, from what I understand, he was a pretty reserved guy, and that's why he didn't really talk about it, because he didn't really have a social media presence. He was very like, I mean, I understand that's like not wanting to like put your life on display. Like, not everybody wants that. But yeah, that picture, and there's other like stories of him like visiting cancer patients and stuff. So he seemed like and he also was an incredible actor. He's probably one of my favorite parts of Black Panther. That his role and his acting in that movie is pretty stand out. So
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
So, of this recording, we don't know how they're gonna handle it on a business platform, but it's been so fresh that, like, if you're worrying about that right now, then like maybe you might be an
Fuck you.
asshole. So,
Yeah.
maybe fuck you.
yeah.
Oh no, I won't get my Black Panther 2 movie now.
It's like time and place to worry about that right now. It's
Yeah.
like is a time to grieve. And when people, like, I get when some people were worried about like his legacy, saying like, you know, who's going to continue it, and or who's going to preserve it. Where does it lead? Are they going to continue with Black Panther in terms of the films? So, but when people were like, "Where's my Black Panther 2?" Like, no, this isn't the time to discuss any of that. This is a time to mourn and a time to grieve and a time to just be able to just move through that emotion and be able to process it. It's not a time.
I'm
to
sorry
talk
you're
about,
so privileged.
you know, whether or not we're getting a sequel.
I'm sorry you're so privileged that that's the worst possible takeaway you have of someone dying. It's just like, oh no, I won't get my entertainment. I'm just like, I mean, the whole point of the podcast is entertainment is important, but like, you know, day-to-day basis, chill. Okay, like, let's stop being mean. So Phineas and Ferb came out across the no,
Yeah, those are good
not
news.
the-
This is the good news we promised.
I was like, across the second dimension. Oh, wait, that's the old one. Okay. Candence
Against the Universe.
Candence Against the Universe, which Lauren and I watched together yesterday, but not really because my audio broke up, so we were kind of just watching it ourselves, and then I was just like, hey Lauren, joke, and then she didn't respond. I'm like, oh, I guess my volume's too loud. But that wasn't.
No, you were on mute.
I gave up after a while, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just be on mute, so like I'm not annoying her. So, but it was really because my call audio was bad. So anyway, but we watched it.
Yeah, it kept cutting in and out.
So it's spoiler free.
watched
We're
it.
not gonna spoil it for you, but it was
haven't
good.
seen it yet.
Yeah, I that's why
Yes.
we're not spoiling it. Thank you, Sander. Because as Ola has told me like 5 or 6 times, Disney Plus does not come out in Norway for like another 2 weeks. Please don't spoil Phineas and Ferb. It's the only thing in my life that brings me joy. So,
Yeah, no, but I will say, and this is spoiler free, is that as you watch it, pay attention to Easter eggs, because it's chock full of
yeah.
them. So you just got to keep your eyes peeled.
there's
for
a
that.
lot, and then there's a lot of fun jokes. Like Doofenshmirtz is always the best character ever. So you know. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that they took a concept that was, I mean, I will try to dance around it, but they took a concept that was one of the many recurring gags, and they're just like, haha, it was a character arc the whole time, mwahaha. So I thought that was an interesting way to spin it. So, like, if anything happens, any more Phineas and Ferb stuff happens, which is starting to kind of, like, we're getting, like, chibi shorts and, like, Doofenshmirtz interacting with characters that are still on Disney Channel and, you know, like those kind of things. So I don't know. I think it's going to depend on how the movie goes. And then, but I wouldn't mind more Phineas and Ferb or like Milo's Murphy's Law, which is not as good, but still pretty good. But yeah, and then in the midst of that, because I know people will ask me, does this mean Kim Possible is gonna be rebooted? Because we got the Proud Family now, and we got Phineas and Ferb, and then I think that's it right now. But a lot of different.
They're making Proud Family stuff now.
Yeah,
Like,
they
new stuff?
Well, it's in production right now.
Yeah, it's called Proud Family Louder and Prouder, and there's a slight character design change. I think there's it's more lineless, but yeah, they're making they're rebooting Proud Family. I think it's the same. I think it's the same continuity. It's just a year older or whatever. So they're making new Proud Family stuff. But what's going on with the Kim Possible movie? Well, or Kim Possible. I'm like, well, what happened is Disney fucked it up, and they made this live action movie that no one liked. And so now, and they made everything. They had emojis, they had games, they had shorts that were already pre-made that they released on the on their YouTube or whatever, and they were a little better, but it was bad. You can look them up. I think it's Kim Shushable or something like that, and it's this a thing where Kim's in a library and they have the aliens come, and then I don't know if you've ever, for people who don't know, so the Lore Wardians or whatever, so the aliens in season 4, they put them into live action, and it looks like garbage because it looks like 50s green people garbage, and I'm just okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. But I did like that structure a little bit better. But anyway, so they made a new.
If you want to know what Kim Possible is up to nowadays, Christy Carlson Romano is doing a cooking show on Fox, so you might as well watch that.
Yeah, she's doing a YouTube show that I guess she's doing.
Yeah, she's doing YouTube stuff, and then she's doing something on Fox, unless they're doing some kind of cross promotion thing. But yeah,
I don't know.
I saw ads for her the other day. It's her and her husband both doing a cooking show, saying if you're stuck at home, can't travel, which that's pretty much all of us, let's just cook dishes based on places we'd like to go or something like that. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
what's the name of Patton Oswalt's character in Kim Possible again?
Professor Dementor.
Dementor, yeah. Because if you want more of him, then he has a really good stand-up thing on Netflix called I Love Everything.
Oh, Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, it was actually really good.
Is everywhere, so he's not. He was in the.
Yeah,
he was in the horse show too, so it's fine.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, my only takeaway is just if we're ever gonna do Kim Possible again, so I guess the reboot isn't gonna work, so they're gonna have to start it from where it was. All I want since I've been 14 is awkward Draken and Shigo dating. That's all that's my only requirement if they renew it. So you can't get it. You made a canon, you can't uncanon it. I'm gonna come down to the studio and with the bat and no, okay. Sorry, I think it's a really important character concept. So I made a video about it 6 months ago. Go watch that. So, but that's what my soul would live for. But anyway, and then new people are why are Draken and Shigo kissing? This is not the Kim Possible. I'm just well, sucks to be you. I'm sorry he has more game than you, but so does Doofenshmirtz. So I wanted to make a tweet that it's your life's sad is if Doofenshmirtz and Goofy are getting more tail than you are. So
don't call me out like this.
So anyway, so let's get to the actual topic of the wait. Let me check if there's any more news. Oh wait, there's no more news. Sorry.
Well, it's very very short. So there's a Haunted Mansion remake that's in production. And originally, it was supposed to be something where it was supposed to be. I guess Guillermo del Toro was supposed to be at the helm of it, so we could have had something. But they just announced that the director from Ghostbusters 2016.
Oh God!
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Is on the project.
Oh no!
And
Oh,
so I'm
no.
like, let's just see
What
where
could
it goes.
possibly go
It's not-
wrong?
What could possibly?
When the movie comes out, it's not going to be a question about which of the Haunted Mansion movies is better. It's going to be a question which one of them is worse.
Ugh.
Because the original one is already horrible.
I mean, it's like kind of
So,
campy
yeah.
horrible though. So,
Like, I can still actually sit and enjoy the Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy because, yeah, it is funny. It's kind of like where so many people were like so upset about the Grinch with Jim Carrey, but meanwhile, Jim Carrey as the Grinch. I mean,
it's like
it's hard
I love
to
that movie.
surpass his
unironically.
performance because it's
That is
I'm like
so-
I genuinely enjoy it because it's a different take on the story and actually his interpretation of the Grinch was something I always imagined of the Grinch, him being unabashedly gross and grumpy and just a recluse unless he wants to go and mess with the Who's and stuff like that. So I mean, it's like, yeah, that's what I envision. So I don't know.
yeah, it's
But
always
anyway,
like
same thing about the Haunted Mansion. It was fun.
It's like-
it's just it's
Go ahead, Lauren.
no. You
Okay,
go.
my point being like everyone hates or not a lot of people. People nostalgically enjoy the 2000 Grinch movie, and then we're like, how can this possibly get worse? And then we get the Illumination Grinch, which visually is beautiful, but the Grinch is arguably out of character, so
You had Benedict Cumberbatch on your cast. You could have had him sound like Boris Karloff. You could have had it all, but you made him have an American accent and sound nothing like himself.
Like-
you can sell. It's so easy to sell Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, everything Illumination does, it's just like cheap. Like it looks clean and good, but like if you watch the movie more than once, like there's nothing in the backgrounds of any of their movies, and it's just like star actors with names, so you can be like, oh, Benedict Cumberbatch is this character. Oh, that's, and then kids are like, oh, I know Benedict Cumberbatch because memes on the internet, and then we watch the movie and it's like, fuck.
I mean, Illumination's actual what Illumination strives for is to create as cheap as possible animation that still can pass off as good. That's actually what Illumination was created for, was to try to make really cheap animation that could pass off as expensive animation.
life goals.
Yeah.
But
There was some paid. There was some years ago. I might be confusing something here, but there was something about people being underpaid and understaffed.
I think that was for Sausage Party.
Yeah. No, this is something else
Oh,
other than
okay.
that, because their people didn't get credited. Like they spent years on animation and just never showed up in the credits.
Rip.
So
But yeah, anyway, so I guess we'll just see what happens, but I assume Disney's gunning for a Haunted Mansion franchise that is like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, but I feel like that was like catching lightning in a bottle. So we'll see, what happens. I think an animated Haunted Mansion movie is the way to go, but don't listen to me.
We almost had an animated series.
Yeah,
for
there was
Haunted Mansion.
pitches, you can Google them if you want, for really pretty, aesthetically designed.
There's test
Yeah.
footage and everything too. It was. I'm like, oh my god.
But now we have the Hotel Transylvania TV show that no one watches instead. Yay!
I didn't even know that was
is
a
that a
thing.
thing?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Exactly.
oh my god, I haven't heard of. I haven't even seen nothing about it, and I'm usually up on strange things nobody watches. That's
Yeah, I mean, I think I watched a little bit, but all the voice actors are changed, obviously, and I think it's
Oh, is-
before the first movie, and I don't know if the continuity is even lines up. So I don't know. I haven't watched it, so maybe I'm just throwing hate. Well, yeah, maybe I don't know, but at the very least, not a lot of people know about it or know it's a thing, so that's a little bit telling. Yeah, and we'll talk about Owl House next week. Please don't send us emails. I haven't seen it yet and stuff. But the season finale just came out a couple days ago. So okay, are we okay? We're good.
But anyway, to the topic at hand.
to the actual thing we're talking about now.
Okay.
So we're here to talk about editing.
Okay, so the first question is I guess we'll go Ola and Sander is what inspired you to learn how to do video editing in general?
I think I told this story last time I was on the podcast, but it was just mostly in middle school I got into photography, and then in our photography class we got like an assignment to make a type of like short film thing, and that made me realize that I was more interested in making short films and stuff than I was interested in doing photography. And that just naturally led into me being interested in doing video editing, and obviously also watching a lot of YouTubers and stuff made me be like, oh, I want to be like them. So I just started practicing in like several video editing softwares, and I've been like moving up in the world with editing softwares. Like it starts with Movie Maker and it like move up to more complicated.
What is Movie Maker?
Movie Maker is the most basic editing software you can get out there.
No, a Movie Maker. Yeah, I heard iMovie. I don't know why I heard iMovie.
iMovie is better than Movie Maker.
Yeah.
But iMovie is pretty much the Mac equivalent to Movie Maker, but it does have more options than Movie Maker. Movie Maker is pretty much the most basic editing software you can get, but it's free and it's for Windows, and that's how I started with Movie Maker.
Okay, and why is Movie Maker so simplistic?
I think it actually is simplistic, first of all, because it's free, but second of all, I think it's like baby's first editing software.
The thing about Movie Maker is that one, it doesn't exist anymore. Technically, you can still get it, but it's not officially supported by Microsoft anymore. There's something called a video editor built into Windows 10 now. But the thing about Movie Maker is that it was made for everybody could just pick it up, put like clips from their holidays, and like maybe add some images from a holiday, and like click save and just save it as a video without having to like know anything about encoding or exporting or bitrate or anything. Just like throw it in, get something that they can like burn to a DVD and put on at like birthdays or like to like memorize about things that happened.
So
and that's it basically.
So it
or
only
make
had
really shitty YouTube videos.
Yeah. So I think so. It has two timelines, like one for the music and one for the pictures or whatever.
Yeah, one audio track.
Okay, so how editing works is what happens is there's different, like Photoshop, there's different layers, and then you just kind of stack everything on top of each other. So for our videos, what we do is it's my audio usually. Well, do you guys put the background music as the first layer, or do you have like my audio? I guess.
I have your audio as the first layer, and then I put the background music under there.
Yeah, you mentioned Photoshop, and we talked about how Ola got into video editing, but you didn't mention me.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Because I started doing Photoshop as like a class thing outside of school, because I wanted to. It was called photo manipulation and animation. So it was Photoshop and using a program called SAM Animation to like do take images of something and like make stop motion animation with like paper and stuff. And we used, this is like a long time ago, so probably I don't know. We used Photoshop CS3.
Oh.
So
oh wow.
That's a long time ago.
That's a lot. I started learning Photoshop really early. But that SAM animation thing really interested me because there was some light video editing in it, and we also used Movie Maker to just like put like an intro into it and like maybe like cuts like between maybe several like angles and stuff. And that kind of got me into it. And then of course, same thing as Ola, like YouTube was a really big contributor to just like wanting to learn. And then, what is in the region 10th grade, which is like the end of before you go into high school. I did as like a there's one class we could choose what we wanted to do, and I did what was called media and information, and we were going to make like the final project was like you could make like a review of something or like a interview or like something like semi-journalistic, and we had to edit it in iMovie, but I refused. So I didn't refuse, but I felt like I didn't have enough control with iMovie. So I very legally acquired a copy of Premiere Pro. Then over the course of about 2 weeks, I forced myself to learn Premiere Pro, and I edited it in Premiere Pro.
Well, can I just really quickly say, it's a really short, funny story about how I got into Photoshop specifically. Because, like, in middle school, I made these really shitty YouTube videos, so I needed thumbnails for them, but I didn't have enough money to get Photoshop, so I got this thing called Paint.net. Not regular Paint, it's called Paint.net.
I had Paint.net too.
Yeah.
I used that too, yeah.
And it was free, and I heard everyone say it's basically like Photoshop, but free. So I got it. And it is definitely not very close to the complicated things you can do in Photoshop, but it's if you want to learn how to do Photoshop, Paint.net is a good like free alternative if you like just want to get used to it, because I noticed that when I moved on to Photoshop in high school, there was a lot of stuff in Paint.net that also was in Photoshop, so like I already sort of could do a few things, even though Photoshop can obviously do a lot more than Paint.net. But like, I made really shitty thumbnails with Paint.net, so yeah, Photoshop is definitely better, but it's a good thing to begin with if you want to do photo editing.
And if you want something a bit newer, because I know Paint.net hasn't been updated in like 10 years, there's a program called GIMP, which is incredibly competent. It still lacks some of the more pro functions, like the content-aware fill isn't as good, but if you just want to get into Photoshop, and which I highly recommend if you're doing YouTube and video editing, I think you do definitely need to know Photoshop. And also if you understand Photoshop and layers and stuff, you have a basic understanding of kind of editing video too. GIMP is a good starting point.
Okay. Random question. How did you guys meet each other?
That's actually kind of a funny story, I think.
That is.
So me and Sandra went to the same high school, and like we both, I think, had seen each other in like the hallways and stuff, but we never talked to each other because like he's a year younger than me. And then we both started working for this like youth contest thingy in Norway. And before that youth contest, we also went to a workshop together to make a short film. It's not a very good short film. I think it has pretty good like production value for the budget we had of like $10.
It was $40 about, but we spent all the money. I think half of the money went for a second battery to my camera, and the rest of it went to like a glass thing that we broke for a scene. And no,
we didn't even pay for that. Like I got that for free
we didn't
from
pay
my
for
dad.
That. We got it for free. Right.
But I actually think the movie or the short film looks really good for the production value we actually had.
And time.
Yeah.
Because it was written by me, and I don't write scripts. I've written 2 scripts in my entire life, and that was the first one.
The story would have been pretty decent, but we had like a time limit. We could not go any seconds at all over 5 minutes, and that was including the credits. So we had to cut out a lot of stuff, and we were so angry about that because we knew like if we only had like 2 more minutes, we could make
a new scene.
Yeah, we could have like a pretty decent film. And it also annoyed us when we found out that other people in the contest had like 7-minute long films, and we're just like, we were told we were not allowed to have more than 5 minutes. Anyway, we're getting off track. Me and Sandra met through that film making workshop, and then we worked together on that youth contest thing, and we worked together on that many times. And that just led to us talking to each other more often, because we both like recognized each other when we went to the workshop, because we were just like, oh yeah, you go to the same school as me.
Yeah, and we also had there was another guy who also went to the same school, but you and me had a lot of the same interest in like video games and TV and stuff. So
I like how you guys were like slowly forced to talk to each other. I'm like, I guess we can talk to each other because we have a lot of the same interests.
Yeah, I mean that's about right.
Talking is hard for editors. That's the moral of the podcast. Anyway,
Yeah.
So what's the next question?
I'd say
Okay, go ahead.
I guess to go back into the process, and you can kind of discuss the tools that are needed to make it to kind of start. But what are your chosen tools of the trade?
I mean, I am because of what I personally really, I mean, like most people who edit videos on YouTube, except for like a couple of like, yeah, I prefer Premiere Pro. Though there are definite limitations and problems with it. There's problems with every single editing tool, and I think that's the most important thing if you want to get into editing is that you need to kind of like some programs are good to like if you know one program. There's certain programs like Premiere Pro. If you learn Premiere Pro, you can pretty easily adapt to a lot of other editing softwares. Like there's one called Avid, which is like the professional one where like movies and TV shows usually get edited in Avid. And then you have like a new program called DaVinci Resolve, which used to be only a color grading program, but it's now an editing software and it's free and it's amazing, but it's a bit more complicated. But that is usually color graded. There's ways of doing stuff, but like the big ones on YouTube at least is Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, and Final Cut. And of those three, Premiere and Final Cut is the more professional ones, where Sony Vegas. No, I was
just like we're about to start a war in the comments about all those people that swear by that Sony Vegas is the best one.
No, but like Sony Vegas is great for YouTube videos and that kind of content. But if you want to do anything more, let's call it sophisticated, more like normal television with video files and color grading and more detailed work, you don't have the same control because Sony Vegas is basically a stripped down version of Premiere Pro and a stripped down version of a program called After Effects. And After Effects, I'm not going to go into it, but After Effects is pretty much like an effects tool. So
really,
what's called
After Effects is an effects tool?
Yeah, but it's called compositioning. So basically, like in a movie, if you see like something. No, actually, here's a good example. You know, in TV shows when there's like pixelated faces to like hide people's identity, that's usually done in After Effects because you can choose points to track in video and like follow that tracking. That's done in After Effects. You can do similar kind of stuff in Sony Vegas, but it's very stripped down. So it's a stripped down version of Premiere Pro and After Effects just mashed together, basically.
Yeah, I think. Ola, is your answer the same? Do you like Premiere Pro?
Yeah, I personally prefer Premiere Pro. Yeah, and obviously I also work a little bit in After Effects. I am definitely. I feel like I'm really good at Premiere, but and I feel like I'm decent at After Effects. I can obviously improve, and I highly doubt I'm as good as Sander in After Effects, and I'm definitely not as good as Sander in Audition. I don't think I'll reach that ever.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that like one of the reasons Sander is so good at audio editing and he helps run some of the social stuff for the podcast itself is his dad is an audio engineer, so like that helps a little bit.
I mean, yeah, kind of. I guess. I mean, he's not in the same kind of field that this is. He does like live.
But still,
stuff
like it's in your blood.
Yeah, I can ask stuff, and I think one of the first images of me wearing like anything on my head, like it wasn't like a cap or like a hoodie or anything. I think one of the earliest images of me is with like a headset on. So.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like massive like
just
like
little
studio
baby
headsets.
Sander with the giant
Can we get
headset.
pictures of that?
I can see if I Yeah, I can get that image. Yeah.
Okay, and then Ola, you gotta Photoshop him to have sunglasses on.
Will do, boss. Oh yeah, and what was the color grading software you mentioned, Sander?
Okay, it's called DaVinci Resolve, and it's by a company called Blackmagic Video. Um, they specialize very much in like budget but really good camera equipment and software. So they have like this cam in like the videography world, like low budget videography world. They made a camera a couple of years ago called it's a complicated name, but it's called the Blackmagic Cinema Pocket 4K, and they made a 6K version last year, and they're like the 4K one costs like I think it's like around $1,000, a bit under. It's like $900 or so dollars.
Isn't it like is it a permanent buy then?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like a thick DSLR camera, but it doesn't do photo, like the photos suck on it, but it does like what's called raw audio. And if you're familiar with photo, taking photos, it's basically the same thing as like raw files, meaning that there's a lot of information in the video, and it's really like, inexpensive for what you get. And it's like they do like, for example, me and Ola, we did like the like thing we met at, which was like a contest thing, and then we did live video feeding, where we like had like 4 or 5 cameras out on a filming a scene, like people singing and dancing and
Filming
stuff.
a scene at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, filming a scene, yeah, and all those videos. Oh, I'm thinking, okay. All those video files went into like a video mixer, and the one we used at the place was a Blackmagic one because they're really good at like those low budget things, that like lower budget but still really high quality stuff. And DaVinci Resolve is one of them. It used to be just color grading, but I think like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, it got really good like last year. And it's very different to in editing from a lot of other programs. It takes a bit getting used to if you use other programs. But if you never used a new program before, I would recommend like DaVinci Resolve as like not an introduction, but I guess it's a good free software to know, because the industry is really starting to pick it up.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, can you also define color grading?
Okay, I can define color grading. So like when you film something with a video camera, you can. So let's say here's a good example actually. You know, in movies when they're in Mexico and everything is just orange, that is color grading. That's going in after the fact, like after the film, and adding like usually changing and manipulating the colors. So when a like high budget movie is filmed, they film in what's called a log format, which is like a logarithm. It's called logarithmic filming, which, if you've ever seen behind the scenes of like movie sets, like the footage from like behind the scenes stuff where they're filming with the camera, it looks really like lacking in color. That's because that gives them higher dynamic range. So the darker areas has a lot more detail, and the lighter areas has a lot more detail than if they were to like have all the color at once. So they usually go in After Effects and add and boost colors and things. So they keep the detail and they keep all the nice stuff, but then they just add what they want. So I think a good example, yeah, is of course when like in when they're in movies and they're in Mexico, it's usually like this horrible orange tint over it, or like in Lord of the Rings when they're in like the night scene with the elves. It's very like blue, purpley, very like, it feels very like dreamy, and that's because it's color graded. Both, of course, lighted that way, like with actual lights, but it's also gone in color grading and like really brought that feel to it. And usually you have like locations are usually color graded the same way. So like, or like sometimes they change it, like so. But yeah, color grading is the act of going in after in post production, which is when you edit and just adding a feel to a scene with colors, basically.
Yeah, so like the other examples I were gonna list are like if you're doing anything film noir, which is very it's like the detective, like black and white or like very saturated or unsaturated, and like think like Chinatown and like Roger Rabbit is technically a parody of film noir, where you come in and like it's like she came into my office and she, looking sad, and like a lot of like angles where the faces are hidden by the prop. So that, and then
Blade Runner.
yeah, Blade Runner. Oh, Mad Max uses tons of it. And then sad example, but I'll mention it because it's very obvious. So Schindler's List is shot in black and white, but there's one scene where there's a girl in a red coat and it's like masked out essentially. So she's the only thing that has color in the whole movie. So yeah, I know things too.
If there's one thing I know that I should really improve on and look, I've actually been planning to look more into it because I really should. It is color grading. Like, I know the basics, but I'm not the greatest at it, so I should really like improve on that because that's a really important skill to have if you really want to like edit in the industry in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need paracetamol because you will get a headache from learning about color edit. Like color grading is very technical.
Yeah, I really need to like look more into that. I mean, many people probably think it's just like, oh, just throw on a filter, and some movies do that, but some movies do that, but that looks horrible. Just look at Power Rangers; they just throw a filter on when they try to color grade, and it looks like garbage.
Or like Twilight, where they forget to color grade, they just like boost the contrast of like the flat colored image, and it's just contrast and nothing else.
Yeah, a tip if you're ever gonna try to color grade something, try to actually like look up tutorials and practice it. Don't just like put a filter on or boost the contrast. That's not gonna look good at all. I'm talking from experience of making really bad color grading in middle school.
Me too. Like the biggest thing, and I'm looking back at like some project I did just like 2 years ago, and I notice it now, and it's so annoying. And that's you're always going to think you want some, like when you're done, you think you're done color grading. Just dial it back a bit. Like always dial it back a bit because less is more. You will always, when you start learning color grading and start color grading, you will always just do too much.
Don't make Mexico too orange. Just a tiny bit of orange is okay.
You don't want to become an actual orange, then you've gone too far.
I think of like another bad example of like it's again probably technologically speaking. At the time, it was like one of those like when you watch old films and when they're like trying to shoot a scene and it's supposed to be at night, but they clearly shot it in the day, and then they just like color hued and they just shifted the hue, like we'll put a color overlay or something over the film to turn it like a bluish color. Like, see, now it's night.
Yeah, that looks awful. But what I think looks even worse is when they actually want to make it look like not night exactly, but evening. Because night already looks bad when they shoot it in the day and try to make it night. But like when they try to make it evening, they also do like with Mexico. They make it orange, and it looks.
Yeah.
It always hurts every time because it's so obvious they shot it in the middle of the day.
I mean, we talked about my summer job earlier, and I was a practitioner on a film set, on a TV show set. And they did actually do day for night a couple of times. But it's usually the best way to get day for night properly is if you're filming inside. Because when you're filming inside, you're using filters on the windows anyways, because lights coming in will always be too bright. You'll always add what's called ND filters on the windows. You add just meters upon meters of ND filters, which is usually like the thing you put on the front of the camera, but it's just like in paper, like
we're getting a little off topic, so let's get it back to actually like editing.
Yeah.
So So I guess I'll ask the next question. So for people who aren't paying attention to things, the KP videos are technically pretty high quality, I would consider. For especially for YouTube's, we do fancy things, and we do a lot of well, I'll let you guys describe it. So what's I think the question is why is video editing important, and why is it crucial to make both our content and then like content in general? Like what is the thing that good video editing can bring to an already good script, if that's what you want to consider. Like, I'm trying to give myself a backhanded compliment, but like, you know what I mean.
It is very important to make sure that what the editor puts on screen resonates with what the audio is saying. Like, when you say something and something comes on screen, it should be timed properly, and it should be relevant to what you're saying to like really get the point across. The same as with footage. Like, the footage needs to be related, so like you need to be aware exactly what the person is talking about. Like, when we're editing your videos, you often say that we should probably watch the thing that we are editing a video for, so we know exactly what you're talking about, so we know the context and we can find it and put it in. And
like a good edit takes a mediocre point and makes it good, like really good, because you choose footage or clips or like what's called keyframing, which is just moving images a bit on the screen in a way so you make a decent point good, and a good edit also turns a good point into an excellent point, and a good edit turns like maybe like in I'm trying to find an example in my brain right now, but it's really late. In like, let's say we're like, if we can analyze the character impossible in a video, choosing the right image, like video for that, is important, because KP can say as much as he wants about the things she's talking about, but we are using the images and video and audio to prove those points. So it's just not like points without any like context. We're adding context and meaning to the words that are being said.
Yeah, a good example of that is, for example, sometimes KP might mention something, and you can just put the footage on screen while she's talking about it and no audio. But the better way to like really get the point across is that KP might be talking about a specific moment in the show, and then when she's done with that, you show the specific moment she's talking about with the audio in, so like people can actually see and hear and experience that moment for themselves to really like show what she's talking about. So they also get like the actual scene with audio on it, instead of just like seeing a muted scene with KP talking over it.
Yeah. I'll add my 2 cents in there as someone who has to deal with this on a producer standpoint. So basically, I think I'm very nitpicky about just the video process in general, because like what they were talking about, like, you know, you're writing basically a research paper, but it's in a visual format. So we've been trying to be more careful and be more observant to put clips that are supporting, like having clips play that are supporting what I'm saying, versus just not having anything like that at all to kind of like push whatever point I'm making forward, as well as, you know, having B footage or footage that is going on as I'm talking, so you're seeing footage on screen that is very specific to what I'm saying. So a lot of times, like for how I do my own part of the process is I will describe what I want visually sometimes in my raw audio. So when I'm recording the script, then I'll say, hey, why don't you do this thing here? Or I work better explaining and talking through things, so I usually do that instead of trying to write it in the script. So usually the editors will take that and kind of run with it, but it's kind of like helping people remember the points better, as well as like showing them visually. So as well as
it's a rule of show and
yeah.
tell.
Yeah. And good editing is
Yeah.
actually really important. Not only in movies and TV shows and stuff. It is actually really important in YouTube videos as well, because as we mentioned, like, we can make a decent point look good or a good point look great. But another thing is, there can be like really good points in a video. Like, some people might write a really good script with some really good like critiques and points, but if the editing is really bad, the video becomes almost unwatchable. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if the points are good, if the editing looks and sounds bad. There
And
are actually
yeah.
YouTube videos I've seen where people have actually come up with some really good criticism, but the editing is just so bad that no one can take it seriously, and it becomes unwatchable because the production value is so low, despite the script
Yeah.
maybe being good.
And I think, like, we talk about like choosing the right footage and stuff, but I don't think that's the most important thing in editing. I think it's more towards what Ola is saying, and I think that just in if we were to choose one word on what's the most important thing in editing, in editing, I think it's pacing. Like, if you don't pace stuff well, like, you as an editor, you have all the footage on the video and the audio, everything, and you need to make sure that, for example, if I'm choosing a clip where I'm actually like taking audio from like a episode or a TV show or something, uh, you need to make sure that it fits in such a way that what comes afterward doesn't sound like it was supposed to come before the clip. So, for example, if KP is talking about something, like, usually I like to try to separate unless I listen to the audio, of course, and then I like to almost in my mind like section off parts, so I can say like, okay, this is that section, and that means I want like some kind of break off points between this and this like sentence, and I want something like, I think a good pacing makes a good video, because if, yeah, like Ola said, if you don't know what you're doing, it's just like non-stop talking and like random video with almost no cuts or too many cuts. It just becomes annoying, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. So
You need to get that like good balance of things,
yeah,
not over edited, but not under edited as well.
I think a good if you want examples of what not to do, a good example of over editing is that one clip from Bohemian Rhapsody.
I was
Uh,
gonna say.
and under editing, I would say that one scene from the third season of Twin Peaks where there's 15 minutes of a guy sweeping the floor and doing nothing else.
And it's funny because, yeah, when it comes to like, I mean, the loophole that they do have for something like that, it's like, oh, it's David Lynch, there's a reason he has
I love that.
shots like that, because he's kind of like the one that, I
I
guess,
know.
in a way, he like took what almost like what Stanley Kubrick did, and then he like ran with it in
Yeah,
terms of the weird stuff. So
I mean,
it's like,
I love that
but
scene,
with oh
but it's
yeah, but it's
dumb.
like,
It's so dumb.
yeah, but I, with Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah, that
Oh
one shot.
god.
It's funny because I was gonna use that exact same example, and especially because so many people were upset that it walked away with
Oh my
the movie walked away with the Oscar for
god.
best
Yeah.
editing.
That's
And after, especially when you see that scene, like, there are some other other scenes that work really well, but when you have other shots that are like way too, they're way too quickly done. Like, the one shot that they're referring to is when the band is sitting at a table with like with basically like their new managers and stuff, and they're talking about going on tour and stuff like that, and it's just jump cutting, jump between, like, I mean, rapid fire jump cutting between all the people sitting at the table, barely letting you have a moment to really like read what the person is expressing. And it's all while one or two people may be talking amongst each other. So you're just showing all these faces
yeah.
and at all these different angles, and it's just, but it's happening so fast, you don't have time to visually process it, and
Yeah.
a lot of people got headaches from it because the editing was so unnecessarily fast for a scene where they're just sitting and talking.
And I think, yeah, and that scene also is a good example of something I also try to do in not do in KP videos, or like a thing that's usually taught in doing video, like filming actual video, I try to bring into KP videos is in our KP videos sometimes we use KP. We call them faces, which is the KP avatar basically, and we use that and use sometimes other footage to like either like enhance a joke usually, or make a like enhance a point. And that scene there's another thing really poorly, and that is you don't know where people are because the framing of the people doesn't make sense. There's something called is it 180 degrees rule?
Oh yeah.
Where that gets completely broken in that scene.
I hate it when they do that.
Because that would take too long to explain. But Google it. It's a very fundamental thing about film.
It's like the
filming.
number one thing you learn when you start learning about filming. I think that's the first thing you pretty much learn.
Yeah, and
it's like even in animation, I'm afraid of breaking the 180 rule constantly.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some avant-garde people and like indie people often break that rule to like
if
get
you know
their
what
message
you're
across.
doing.
Yeah, they need to like know what they are doing, and don't constantly do it. And also, I do think like quick, rapid editing and like jump cuts and stuff can work, but you need to. It needs to be fitting for the tone and the moment, and you don't need to overuse it. Like it needs to be a very specific moment where it actually fits. It can look good and work real well for a film if it fits the tone, the scene.
Yeah,
and it doesn't get used constantly.
Like the Caesar scene from Incredibles 2. That movie when like most typical time we get like really fast editing in that probably the most use you can get out of really quick editing is make stuff intentionally confusing. Like if a character is taking drugs or going crazy, or I think like Evil Dead, there's a lot of really fast editing.
I can say a thing. So and The Hangover, when the characters are waking up and there's purposely like a shaky cam, as they're kind of like surveying the hotel room and like seeing what they did. So that's an intentional use of not so much breaking the 180 rule, but like using the cinematography of a scene to help portray what the character or how the character is feeling. So.
Yeah, it's being careful with what you use and how you use it. Like, yeah, for some things like that, where it's especially if you want to confuse or disorient your audience because you want them to feel the way the characters are feeling in a certain scene, then that's what you do. It kind of, it's that jolt that they need to like. It's almost like calibrating the audience to feeling what they should feel in that scene, as if to put them into that situation. But yeah, when it's overused, it just becomes unwatchable, and it's
My point then originally was that when I use KP, the face as avatar, I try to keep the rule of third when I use it, and also don't just throw like cut basically to KP's avatar on the other side of the screen suddenly, because that would break continuity with how you're looking, because it would be like it would be hard to follow. Like everything needs to be easy to follow and understand, unless you want to confuse someone. But then it needs to be very obvious, so that you're trying to confuse people. And usually in YouTube videos, that's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
So especially analytical content. Yeah, analytical content. You very rarely try to make people confused, because that would like undermine the entire point of the video, which is to educate and make people understand if you're actually confusing someone.
Yeah, and if you want to move the face for a specific effect you want to do, it is fine, but you should probably show the actual face being moved with the keyframes and stuff. And I've noticed that what you mentioned, Sandra, that's a mistake a lot of new editors often do on the team, is that they have a tendency to just make that face stand wherever the fuck they want. Oh, excuse the language.
I've been swearing a lot, so I think that's thrown out the window.
We're Norwegians. We swear all the fucking time. I didn't say fucking time on purpose there, by the way. Maybe we can finally use that opening now, where it's like, oh, this is heavy adult language.
Yeah, and she just
Anyway,
ended
a
at
lot
the
of
end,
new
that's funny.
editors on the team often do that mistake where they keep jumping around with the faces, uh, and it is very jarring and doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's important to understand the setting, like the staging of your scene, the setting, where characters are or where your subjects are in that space. And then it's like, yeah, it's sometimes it's a lot to keep track of depending on the extremity of the scene. But um but yeah, it's always important to know your layout, especially so that way when it comes to focusing on characters and stuff at the right time and in the right proper flow of the space. Yeah, because otherwise, yeah, when you break 180 and all that stuff, only if you keep breaking it and and there's no reason for it to be broken, then it just is confusing, and
Yeah,
not the good kind of confusing.
but
It's where where your
I,
audience can't even follow it.
yeah, but I think it's very important to preface this if you're new to animation, because this is like basics of video editing. Like, regardless of us telling you that these, like, don't do these mistakes, you will make these mistakes. Everybody makes these mistakes. It's inevitable, and you need to make them to learn from them. So I think that's the main thing about editing. Like, everybody's bad at like editing. Like, I went recently. I went back and looked at some stuff I did when I started editing in Premiere Pro, and it's horrible. I hate it. But that's the point. And I think it's the same thing with like writing and doing art and everything. Like, you will improve, and
Mm-hmm.
video editing is, especially if you try. It really depends what software you start using. But if you jump into it wanting to do very specific things, it gets very technical very fast. So there is a very steep learning curve, and you might feel like after a year or so that oh yeah, I know everything now. But he will hit that point where just like, no, I don't know nothing. Like, I don't feel I know. I personally, like, Ola was saying how good he thought I was an editor in Premiere and After Effects and Audition, which is an audio editing software. By the way, we didn't mention that. But feel like I don't know anything about any of the softwares at all. I feel like I'm really bad at it personally, but I don't know. There's always more to learn.
Personally, I feel like I am pretty good at Premiere, but like as you said, there's always more to learn constantly, and there's also the other softwares that I need to learn more about because I'm only like decent at them. But Premiere, I'm very confident in, but I still can learn. Despite being confident in it, I can still learn more stuff. And
Yeah, and you can.
as you mentioned, Sandra, everyone makes mistakes, and like you look back at your old stuff when you hate it. But personally, I don't think you should look back at your stuff and hate it.
I don't hate it,
I
but
actually love
Mm-mm.
looking at my old stuff. Like
Yeah,
my old editing is god awful, but I love it. The reason why I love my old stuff is because of how bad it is. Because I really like going back and see how bad I was at editing a few years back, because it really shows how much I have
yeah,
improved. And I think it's the same thing with like art as well. Like if you go back and look at the stuff you made many years ago, you shouldn't hate it. You should be like thankful to see how far you've gone. It actually, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not embarrassed of my old videos. I like to show them off to people actually, because I like to look back at my own videos and I feel really motivated actually by looking at my old videos, because I see how much I have improved and grown as an editor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like really motivational.
yeah, and yeah, I do agree with you. I don't hate my own stuff, but it's that slight cringe. I think that gets me, because you're like, yeah, I'm better now, and that's good. And I mean, it's also fun to go back and when you look at stuff, because you're like, I see what I wanted to do. I didn't do it well, but I get what I tried to do, kind of. And I think that's the main thing with editing. Like, if you want to do something specific, like if you like, oh, I've seen this thing on YouTube, or I've seen this thing somewhere on TikTok, in a movie, like, try to do it. Like, even though it seems very hard, and probably is very hard and very expensive and very complicated to do, see if you can do it. Try to do it like with the limited equipment you have, with the limited things you have. Try to actually do it, because pushing yourself constantly, especially with the video editing, is the way to understand and specifically with like video editing. I think because it gets complicated quite quickly especially if you do like actual editing of video with like video files and codecs, and it gets complicated. But if you don't jump into it and try, if you just sit on the sideline and be like, nah, I'm just going to do what I know all the time, you're never going to actually have any progression at all.
Yeah. You need to actually try to grow at anything, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I'm sorry. No, you
Oh,
go.
I was just gonna move on to the next point. So, if you wanted to say anything, speak now.
No.
Okay. So, I guess this is the part where I'll talk more than I have been, because a lot of this is just stuff. So why don't you guys break down the process of video editing in the most like basic vocabulary possible? And I guess you can do it in the way it relates to a KP video, but like Sander, you can also jump in and like talk about how it's different editing with live action footage comparatively. So okay, go ahead, Ola. Go ahead. Describe how you make a KP video. Like, go.
Okay, when it comes to a KP video, after the script has been recorded and approved and all that stuff, we first have to put it into Audition, which is our audio editing software. And what we do in Audition is that we cut the audio. We usually use this thing called multi-track. If you're ever going to edit in Audition, use multi-track. Up in the corner of Audition, there's this thing called waveform and multi-track. You should always use multi-track while editing audio in Audition. It just makes everything way easier. So it basically cuts down this audio into whatever length the video is supposed to be. We cut out we cut out all like inhales and outhales and stuff, and sometimes we have these things called pops and clicks that KP makes with her mouth, and we have to find a way to remove those. And if there is a lot of background noise in the background, we have to use different tools to remove that. We try and hope a lot of the time that there's not a lot of background noise, because that can ruin the audio. You should not put a lot of like effects on the audio. You should use as little effects as possible.
Don't add reverb.
Yeah, that is not good. We also cut out obviously KP is a human, like every one of us, so she can't like say every single line perfectly every time, so we obviously have to cut out some of the retakes and some of the flubs and stuff.
And sometimes, you know, maybe she does several takes, and sometimes it does several takes where she does the entire take, and there's just different tonal inflections. And sometimes you might choose to like, oh, I like this sentence, the first take in this sentence, but I think the last sentence in the last take was better, and then you might try to want to Frankenstein them together to make it. Or like if she actually is easy to pause, if it pauses enough, you can actually take the parts that sounds best and then put them together to make a sentence, or like take the good parts and make it sound good, basically.
Yeah, and when we're done with cutting it down in Audition, we usually like export the audio, and we should upload it online. Sometimes people forget, but we should upload it online and send it to the other editors so they can listen to the audio while we start doing the visual stuff. And firstly, I want to say when we first joined the team, we were shown this video on how to make a KP video, and that is a horribly outdated video because it said that the first thing we should do is place all the faces on the entire thing, yeah, the KP avatar on everything. And the justification was, in case you don't have anything to cut to, you will always have something to cut to. But that is a flawed logic, obviously, because like if we found out we needed to cut to KP faces, we could just, and we didn't have KP faces there, we could just add them. So
yeah, and I want to quickly, before we go into video, I just want to point out a workflow thing, which is like it relates to the audio, but also very much to the video, but specifically to the audio, and that is what's called a non-destructive workflow. And if you've done art, you like drawing digitally, know what that is. But it's basically when you do add effects in, for example, Audition, or like transform, like you say you add an effect in, you want to like do something to an image. It's very important to, when you can, to make it so that action is reversible at any stage of production. So for example, in Audition, instead of clicking add effect and then adding the effect to the actual audio file, you want to maybe use the effect rack, which is its own thing, and add effects to the entire like audio channel. So if you're like, oh, I don't, so you, after you're done with like cutting the thing, you're like, oh, I want to change something with this one effect, because now KP, the like when KP says something, it sounds like she's like Satan because it's so like boost bass boosted. Then you should always make sure that you're able to fix those mistakes, because if not, you suddenly have to redo everything, and you never want to, in editing, you never want to redo anything, because that is the most frustrating and most boring and most like draining thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add two. Oh, okay. I'll go first, Ola, and then you can add. I'll add two. So, in a perfect world, ideally, a lot of the things that might be subjective as far as the edit. So there's technical things that we look over that, obviously reduce as the editor gets better. So like, is their audio clean? Does this joke work? Is this image photoshopped cleanly, or does it look like garbage? So there's stuff like that. But there's also like the two things that kind of are dependent on the editor that, we have to get feedback on is the pacing. So, and the jokes, which kind of tie together. So a lot of times the editor, and that also ties into making sure you're familiar with the source material. But a lot of times the editor will edit jokes or, something, and I'll be like, hey, that's not funny, cut it. Or like, hey, let's do it this way. So if you're working in the style that standard proposed, essentially, then that's not a big deal to remove things or re-edit things, but you don't want to screw yourself over, essentially, when you have some subjective stuff like that.
Yeah, you should at all points of production, at any costs, you should be able to revert and turn back what you've done, because there will be, you never know what you need to change. You might think, oh, this is done, this looks perfect, and then you put it out for everyone to like comment on, and you get it back, and 4 people have commented on the same thing, and you're like, oh yeah, I agree with them, and now I just didn't notice it the first time. Because when you edit something yourself, you will become like blind to certain mistakes, because you've been looking at you've listened to the same audio so many times. Like, you will now, like, if you edit for someone and their audio, you will know how their voice sounds, and you will pick up on every single little detail they make when they talk. So
yeah, and don't be distraught by other people giving you feedback, because like feedback is very important. That's a really important way to improve. And as Sandra said, you become blind to some of your own mistakes, and getting feedback from other people really helps with you noticing them. Which is why we always post these videos, several renders of these videos, so the other editors can like give us feedback, so we can make the best video possible.
Yeah, because it's almost like you become blind to your own stuff. you've been staring at it long enough, you always never hurts to have a fresh set of eyes and ears to look at and hear things and see how they go.
Yes. And when it comes to the like actual video stuff and how the process for us editing the video, some of us have learned the hard way that when you first edit the video, always make sure to set the aspect ratio of of the video before you start inserting visuals. Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
What's an aspect ratio?
That's the size of the video screen, basically.
You know the old movies and the TV show when it's 4:3. That's 4:3. That's the old like TV box. Like a lot of older shows, like the Gummy Bears or DuckTales. Old DuckTales, not the new one. The good DuckTales. That is 4:3, and then newer stuff is usually called 16:9. Though it's technically not by. That's an actual like mistake. Anyways, 16:9, which is the normal like screen size, and then you have like weirder ones, like a lot of the like longer ones. Like when you see a movie, like you go to this. Well, you don't go to the cinema. Don't do that. Be at home. But when you look at a movie, it's usually like thinner, and that's can be like anything. But one of them is like 11:12:1. And it's always like different. It just has to do with how image is shown. And usually for like for example, most Marvel movies, they keep 16:9 because they're action movies and they're meant to be fun. But for example, like Tarantino movie will be a lot thinner because it wants a specific like feel. For example, Hateful Eight has one of the thinnest aspect ratios like in every movie ever, because the entire movie is supposed to be feel really claustrophobic. So yeah, it's usually just 16:9 for normal humans, but once you start using stuff, you can use stuff really creatively if you want to.
Yeah, I usually like set the aspect ratio first, but I had like gotten this really unhealthy habit of being used to the background always being the exact aspect ratio that we need. So I usually just put in the background first, so it's the perfect aspect ratio. But sometimes we have like specially made backgrounds that sometimes aren't the correct aspect ratio. So it's a really unhealthy habit. You should like actually do the aspect ratio first. And what I usually do is I put in the background first and on the first video layer, because there, as we mentioned, like with art, there's several layers. There's like infinite amount of layers of video and infinite amount of levels of audio you can put. And on the first video layer I put the background we use, and on the first audio layer I put KP's audio. And what I proceed into doing after that is inserting and finding all the footage that is needed for the video, and then every moment I feel like there is fitting to have footage, I insert the footage there. And when I finally have finished inserting all the footage for the video, that's when I move on to the KP faces, which we were originally asked to do all of first, which we realized was not very effective. Because if you do that after you've inserted all the video stuff, it becomes a lot quicker to edit, because you know exactly where you need the faces, so you don't insert it all over the audio. And I feel like this is related. This is actually, if you're going to edit for YouTube, this is actually relating to more than just KP videos, because a lot of YouTubers do like KP and have this avatar on screen. So I think this is actually important information to know if you're going to edit for YouTube. So I insert all the faces after the video, and then after that I start putting all the PNGs and vectors on screen, which is all the visuals that we usually make fly on and off screen in KP videos. And we do that using several keyframes on the video. And a keyframe is pretty much just like these set animations we sort of give the visuals in the video, so we can make something move from one place to another during a certain time frame, or change the size or rotation. There's a lot of options with keyframing, and it's probably one of the most basic, but one of the also more important aspects of editing. And after that, I finally insert the credits, which we use a green screen for. So I usually wait with that to the end. And I also
What's a green screen? Well, what do you use it for?
A green screen is what is something that pretty much every single movie, TV show, or any editor really use, and every editor should know and know how to use it. It's basically exactly what it is. It's what it says it is. It's a green screen, and you can use several effects to make this green screen disappear and have something else appear where that specific green screen is. The most common thing to use for that is color key, but as we've on the team have learned from Sanders specifically, actually, and this tool is a blessing. In After Effects, you have key light, which is works basically the same as color key, but it just works so much better and makes
What?
Yes.
No, what I was referring to now is specific tools within After Effects. So the one I was referring to now, the last one is what's called a plugin that's built into the software. But I wanted to green screen is I'm sorry, I'm taking over now, but I think there's a better way of explaining it because that's a specific a specific thing, but the aspect of green screen is referred to as chroma keying. And the reason why it's a green screen is that the shade of green is so not used in anything that when you can take that key out, and that specific shade of green is also not like a lot of other colors. It's so very specific. So you want, if you want to remove backgrounds, that is the most, that and something called blue screen.
Yeah, I was about
which
to
is
mention
less
that
used.
as well.
The blue screen came first.
Yeah, it was blue screen was used a lot back in the day, but then green screen is more used now. But blue screens do still. Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, they still do use blue screens, but they usually use blue screens if there are colors that screw with the green screen. Usually, like if there is a green color that really screw with the green screen in the scene, it's better to use a blue screen.
And there's another thing which was only used for a couple of movies, specifically Mary Poppins. It's only one camera in the entire world does this, and it's better than green screen and blue screen. It uses like this it reads waves basically, because that's all color is. Of course, it's like waves and shit, like in Vision.
Waves and shit.
It uses this very specific light, and the camera they used has this because the camera is basically like just mirrors and lenses and like mirrors and glass, and this glass has this specific build, like the core of it is like almost like a crystal thing, and they never managed to recreate it. So there exists better keying than green screen, but there's only one of them, and they've never been able to recreate it, and it's only used for like a couple of older movies like Mary Poppins. Because they've never managed to actually be able to make it again.
That's actually a really interesting fact that I didn't know. And here I was going to be with these really uninteresting facts about how most effects in the original Star Wars trilogy was filmed in front of a blue screen. Wow.
Yeah, or what's called, I mean, another way they use in older movies, which if you ever see like the original print of Star Wars or other movies at the time, you can see this like white line around things that are very clearly added in posts, and that is to use the light. So, for example, you would have a very dark background and anything being very light, and then play a bit around with contrast, which is like the difference between the dark and the light. So you would get the normal video, and then you would get a different, like exact same image, it's just black and white, and you would be able to like separate the black from the light, so the darker parts of the image would become invisible, the lighter parts would become visible. So, like green screen, but instead of doing color, you're doing just luminosities. So it's luma keying, not chroma keying. Yeah, but I wanted to add because Ola kept talking about stuff, which was really good, by the way. But I wanted to add that when Ola said dragging stuff onto a thing, that's called a timeline. And most modern editing softwares is what's called non-linear. And it basically means that you can jump back and forth whatever you want. So, for example, when we add, and this is the same thing with Audition, which is with the audio editing software, is that you drag. It's like reading a book or like scrolling through a movie. You add the audio on this track, and you can go back and forth as much as you want. And you can add video and stuff, and you cut out stuff, but you don't have to like do it. Oh, first I'm doing part like the beginning, and then the middle, and then the end. Like, you watched through, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have this thing at the end which I know I want immediately, and you might add that first because you know you want that part, or like, oh yeah, I know I want these 3 scenes which I have in this thing there. So it's that idea of being able to jump back and forth between your clips. That's called a timeline. And almost every editing software has some sort of version of the timeline. And Premiere Pro is one of the most flexible ones of them, where you're able to very finely and very detailed about when stuff cuts and how stuff gets added to the timeline.
Even like Movie Maker has a timeline.
But it's really bad.
I would also argue that After Effects timeline is really awful, but you probably would disagree with me.
But it means that it's not made to edit video the same way.
Yeah, I know, but it's
still
kind of inconvenient. I know it's not technically a timeline. It's very different, but it's kind of inconvenient how it's set up sometimes. But it is designed specifically to like to edit smaller scenes.
It's made to make one project is one scene. So we have. Yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry we're going on about stuff that's not related to KP. But if you are an editor, and please take this part in, editor. If you're an editor and you want to like have some really interesting like looks at how to edit and stuff, I would recommend a couple of YouTube channels, very quickly. There's a channel called Corridor Digital, and they have a secondary channel called Corridor Crew, where they do like their most famous thing is like visual effects artist reacts. And the fact about them, I would recommend watching them because they often actually talk about editing. And they have, I think, 1 or 2 about like editors reacts. But there's the recent like the visual effect artists react. They often talk about how editing complements visual effects and animation. So I would recommend that. And also there's a channel called Cinecom, and then their specialty is replicating effects from high budget movies very cheaply, and then learning you how to do it. And they're very focused on everything should be at an expense to where you feel nothing should be overly expensive. Everything should be budgeted so that you can actually do this yourself.
Yeah,
that's the stuff they recommend.
Excellent.
Yeah, Cinecom is great.
Ola, how about you? Anything you recommend or any resources?
That's a tricky question. Like a lot of the channels I've watched for tutorials and stuff has usually been recommended to me by Sander. And then a lot of it has most of it just been me really just looking it up online and then watching whatever it is I find. I haven't specifically looked at one like channel. It's just like, oh, this video does a really good tutorial on this thing.
Yeah. And also I would say one thing, don't underestimate the power of a good text-based tutorial. Because it's so much easier if you're like have a lot of steps in a text-based tutorial to like, what did I do that there, and then have to scroll back and try to find a point that they said one thing that you've forgotten. So much easier just to scroll a bit up and like, point 5, than to actually see a video. So even though reading isn't, you might not think reading is fun or text-based tutorials are very interesting. But sometimes, especially if you're trying to do more advanced stuff, like please try to find a good text-based one because it's so much easier to just like comprehend than a video, especially on YouTube. They often are like, "Oh yes, push this button," and you're like, "Why? What does this button do?" And they never explain it to you. So I would, instead of just watching YouTube video about how to do this one effect and then doing the pushing the buttons, actually understanding what those buttons actually do and what you're actually doing is way more important than knowing how to do the effect from uh, a music video. Like, it's more important to know how, like, what's like the second you can look at an effect and be like, I kind of understand what they're doing, you're learning correctly, rather than to be like, oh, that effect looks cool, I want to replicate that. Oh, I'm gonna Google it and find it. And you should rather be looking, oh, I think it's kind of that effect. How do I do that effect? I think that's a much healthier way to learn editing and software than to just want to do one specific thing.
Okay, and then we'll do you guys have any favorite projects you worked on quickly? Like any KP projects or otherwise? I hate KP. She sucks.
That's a hard one. It's clearly Princess Bride. No.
Yes, Princess Bride was my favorite project. I was very not tired the entire time because. No. I mean, I would actually like to point something out. Everybody should go and watch Princess Bride, our Princess Bride video. By the way, we spent a lot of time on it, and a lot of not lack of sleep. But yeah, I learned a lot from Princess Bride. I think it's a very interesting project to look back on already because there's so many things I now would have done differently, or I think we should have done differently. But it's still very, I think, actually quite impressive how long and how cohesive it feels.
Okay, I don't know why I thought this was a hard question. This was easy question. Frenemies. The Frenemies video, that's the best video I've ever worked on. I love that video. If people haven't watched it, you should watch it. Frenemies is like one of the few episodes from season 9 that I really actually genuinely loved. Season 9 of My Little Pony. I didn't like the 9th season that much at all, to be honest, but Frenemies is actually a genuinely really good episode. And our review of it is something special. I love it. It was so much fun working on.
It was probably like the easiest edit you've ever done, right?
I actually got a much bigger appreciation for the work that Roundtrip does after having worked on that video, because it despite them looking like really quick to make, they actually take longer than you would expect. So I actually got a newfound appreciation for him after that. But it also has some of I feel like some of my favorite end gags that I've ever made. I just really love that video, and I genuinely think it's actually a funny video.
Yeah, I would say I haven't done that many videos, mostly because I've ended up on larger projects or just been doing. When we started doing the podcast, I was very involved in the making of templates, which has been the thing I've been doing the most. So except for the KP making the one of my, I think actually my favorite project has been the podcast, the loops and stuff we've done for this, which I haven't drawn myself, but I've the moving hands and stuff, and the adding of the smoke in Lauren's cup. That's me.
And the glitchy logo thingy, right?
And the glitchy logo thingy is also my work. Or like 7 things I found on YouTube added together to one thing. Yeah. But yeah, I would say of the actual KP videos, I was really proud of the Impossible Analysis video. That's my the most recent KP video I did. Just imagine it had better background music. That's the thing. Imagine it having the sound some good music and not the copyright-free things we ended up using instead, because damn you copyright system. No, so that's and I also did I did like it was supposed to be half and half, but it ended up being I did 1/3 of it, and another guy called Dom did 2/3 of it. But the My Little Pony review mm, uh of the marriage episode thingy.
Oh, the one that Ola fucked
That
up.
was
The one that Ola fucked up.
Oh yeah, that one that had like 7
Oh
up,
yeah,
like
that's true.
Ola.
the one where we
Yeah.
uploaded like the first 1 minute, and then like why is only 1 minute up and not like the actual how long it is?
Yeah,
But
that's probably
like,
the biggest fuck up I've ever done, is that I didn't check it before uploading it, and then there was something like the whole
Yeah,
video
for
wasn't
those who
there,
don't know, we try not to upload stuff, or once it's done, it's done. But Ola is in charge of checking the videos before they're uploaded on the channel. He's one of the people that has managerial access because he's the head. So for the Big Mac marriage episode with Discord, Ola, I think he accidentally uploaded like half of it. So
Yeah.
well, I mean, the problem was that I rendered the entire thing because I got the file from the other editor, and I added it both together. And when you export, if you're using Premiere, this is the thing you will. I would like to point out, under the like where you can preview it when you're like in the export window, there's a thing that says render and then colon, and you can like there's a drop down menu which says entire session, in and out point, or I think it's custom. And I had at the time I had it set to I usually use in and out points, so I choose like if I have like some like thrash at the end of my thing, I just use I'm like, oh no, okay, I want my thing to stop here. The thing is, I didn't have that for that video, so I was going to use entire sequence, but I'd used in and out points for a personal project thing right beforehand, so I didn't. So it just cut out like a minute of my video, like of the video, like a minute of my section of the video, and then nothing else. And then all I got to find just uploaded it because I never make mistakes, and then I make a mistake, and then everything goes to hell.
Yeah, but I feel like that's mostly on my part because I should have checked it beforehand. I was just like really stressed out and tired of it.
And I also shouldn't edit at 4 a.m. But
Yeah.
Here we are.
And also, I think all editors has done that mistake at some point, Sander. And if they haven't done it, they most likely will do it. But after
Yeah.
you do that mistake once, I don't think you ever do it again, because like I did that mistake once as well, and ever since then I double check that every time. Like literally every time I render something, I always double check that it is set on the correct beginning and end point.
Okay, I guess some housekeeping stuff before we wrap up. If you're new, please subscribe to the main channel. I was so frustrated because we just did this big She-Ra video with cosplayers, and it's like a half an hour long. And not only is it underperforming, like it only has like 3,000 views, which is like, I'm gracious for all the views, but like for such a big video, it was a little disheartening, as well as we lost, I think, like 200 subscribers. I'm just like, man, we worked so hard. So make sure you're subscribed and watching the videos when they come out, ideally, right? And then we have in case you haven't noticed it on the podcast YouTube channel, we have a lo-fi loop that exists for your pleasure of lo-fiing, I guess. So
That has been in production for
Yeah.
a while, so please go watch
yeah,
it.
I just recommend people bookmarking it, so if they want to, they can just pull it up easily, because a lot of times people don't really, when I check it, there's not a lot of people watching it, and I'm like, yay, I'm the one viewer, so, I don't know, it's pretty, we worked really hard on it. It's much better than the regular, like, lo-fi girl loop, because there's just a lot more going on, and actual, like, frame-by-frame animation, and fancy stuff. And then, yeah, the only other thing I can think of is eventually we'll start doing live shows, but we're not ready for that yet, so keep an eye out for, like, live stream versions of shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized when we were getting assets together that we don't have all the assets. So I was gonna tell Lauren, I was like, so about that. So we're getting them, but we gotta make them.
We're
working on it. So
it's in progress.
So yeah, so make and tell your friends to subscribe to the main channel, because we're really trying to work hard to grow it, and it's slow and steady, and obviously it's slower because Corona. It's harder to network because everyone is hiding under the bunker. So, if you could help, do what you can, and we appreciate you, random viewer. But I imagine if people are listening to the podcast, they're already subscribed. But that's why I'm like, go get your grandma to subscribe. Yeah. It's good. Go get your grandma. You don't have friends. Get your grandma.
Follow on the YouTubes and the Twitters and the Instagrams
there's some upcoming projects.
I'm just gonna go and dig up
really
her grave
good
right now and be like, Grandma, why are you not subscribed to KP?
We buried her phone. We need to get it so I can subscribe.
Shit! I dug up the wrong grave. This is not my grandma.
Oh, but that's my neighbor's grandma's phone. I will make her also subscribe.
Okay, yeah, I think that was the funniest part of the whole podcast. Good job, Ola.
Yay! We're funny sometimes.
Yeah, that was a lot of rambling, and I was just sitting in the corner and but yeah, usually in the more episodes when we have more leaner topics or when I get to tell stories are the funnier ones. But anyway, so if you
and also you don't have me and Sander here who just loves blabbering on about the stuff we love all the fucking time and annoy the hell out of everyone.
I'm just I just want to eat food,
Yeah.
But Sandrick just won't shut the fuck up. But it's anyway. And then if you're new to the podcast specifically, this is we're in our late 20s, episode wise. So there's
we're at 30. We're at 30 something.
No, we're only, I number them. Look, I number them.
27.
Yeah, this is 27. So, yay.
But I'm only
We record
21.
a lot, guys.
we have a lot at this point. So if you want to ideally they're for you to learn about things, but depending on the topic, sometimes they're funny too. So what has been your favorite episode so far, Lauren? Funny wise.
Oh shoot, that's tough. I mean, Animal Crackers was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah, and also talking Tangled. That was fun
Oh,
too, Chris.
That's my favorite episode of the podcast so far. I love that. I edited out of that one, and that was so much fun. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take 2 days to edit this audio. I edited the audio in the first day I got it, just because I could not stop listening because it was so fascinating.
Yeah, I would recommend episode 7, the first episode, religion religion and fandom and religion intersect. That episode
was really good too.
It's not as funny, but it's really fascinating, and I think there's a lot of really good conversation in there. But also the professional voice acting one, mainly because the audio is really good, but also because there's interesting conversations going on there.
Yeah, Kira's great.
Kira has her own $2,000 sound booth, so that's why it costs. It sounds so nice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's almost like people should know what it's doing.
It's almost like voice actors know how to voice act, right?
It's almost like she's a professional voice actor.
It's almost like she gets paid to do this.
Yeah. My favorite one so far is 20. Well, for fun, because I like to talk about things. So I think that one was kind of funny, and I don't think I've ever told the whole John Delancey saga in a linear format before. So, if you don't know who John Delancey is, well, you got 2 hours of it to learn about. Yeah, I guess. So if you guys have any more ideas for future episodes, let us know, I guess, in the YouTube comments or on the Twitter, because there's not a place people go, but yeah, watch the main videos when they come out. Those are the ones we work hard on. Not that we don't work hard on everything, but comparatively this takes 2 days to do. 2 or 3 days to put the podcast together now, and then the main videos take like 2 weeks. So it's fine. Okay, any other things to say before we...
It's almost like
Well,
Sandra did most of the work for us.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Hey.
say, at the very least, I do want to say thank you to Ola and Sander for joining us today. You're finally out in front of the microphone and not behind the
Yay.
scenes on this. So
I've been here
But,
before.
yay.
It was fun.
Ola's been here before. I mean, it's been fun being here. I know, especially when I start talking technical stuff, I keep blabbering on. And I wish I could not talk about editing. But yeah, it was fun being
Okay.
here.
And then in like really quickly, why do you guys like being on the team?
Social aspect. That is the best part about Team KP. Is the social aspect. Like I don't think there's lots of YouTubers that has teams working for them, but most of them I think are 100% just professional. Like they're all just co-workers. Maybe some of them become friends, but I don't think they have as much socialization in their groups. But like on Team KP, it's really it's like really big part of the team. It's like how close we all become with each other. I said this last time as well. We just are like this tight-knit family. We're like friends, and we all usually stay in touch with each other even after people leave the team, because we love each other.
Yeah, I'm a Norwegian guy who currently lives in the UK, and I now regularly, semi-regularly, I guess, talk to a guy from the Philippines. So it's like, yay! I have friends on like the completely other side of the world now, and that's fun.
I have friends inside of my computer. It's fine.
Yay!
We did it.
Mom, they're real friends. They're not just fake ones.
It's just like an AI voice talking back at you, you know?
It's actually that like old like what's the name of that like YouTube that's website like everybody was doing when like PewDiePie started becoming big, like anyways, yeah, like an AI.
Yeah, so, anyway. Yeah, so we put episodes up every Wednesdays. Yeah, I think that's all the things. So watch the lo-fi
I
stuff.
think we covered everything.
Yeah, watch lo-fi stuff, subscribe. So, you know, I want comments saying like, "Oh, I got my grandma to subscribe." Like, yay. So, even if they don't know anything
Don't-
about animation, I guess they can start with the podcast and like go from there. Woo. Okay.
Don't dig up graves though. We don't condone that.
Okay, well,
you
on
don't,
that
Declan.
note,
Yeah, I don't condone that. I can speak for KP.
You
I
can't
guess.
speak for me.
No, I can't.
Ola's
speak
so
for you,
desperate
that's
for
true.
friends. He's just like, "Hey
Yeah.
everyone, like welcome to my party," and it's just like a bunch of like dead bodies that he's talking to. You know.
No, I just
Oh,
miss
this is-
my grandma so much.
Ola's just going around digging up old presidents, just like, yay.
You gotta find Abe Lincoln. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll leave on a random fact. So, Abe Lincoln is actually buried in 6 feet of concrete because people were paranoid that his body was gonna get stolen. So there you go.
oh jeez.
And one time
They knew that I would come for him. They just knew it.
And one time,
Yeah.
someone actually did try to steal Abe Lincoln's body, and then they got busted by the CIA, though. So, you know, that's a story for another time, and potentially another podcast. But I'll tell all my death stories, my weird death stories that I know about, like, maybe during Halloween. I don't know. All right, see you guys next week. Bye.
See
Yeah,
you guys.
thanks for joining us,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.